Poor Jerry Mitchell is not having a good day in high school. His day just seems to be going from bad to worse, especially when he accidentally makes enemies with the school's new dangerous bad boy, Buddy Revel. Buddy informs Jerry that the two will fight in the school car park at 3 o'clock, and that running away or telling a teacher will only get him in more trouble. With 6 hours till the fight looming over Jerry, he continuously tries to find ways to get out of the fight, often with failed and humorous consequences, until it becomes apparent that Jerry must face his fears by standing up to his bully in this 1987 dark teen comedy, which many people can probably relate to, as at some stage in our lives we've all had to deal with a bully and eventually face our fears. So today we're going back to high school, namely the high school car park, for an epic showdown with Buddy Revel, as we explore 10 things that you didn't know about 3 o'clock high. So, let's check it out. Number 10. Spielberg's take on the Karate Kid. During the 80s, the teen movie genre was insanely popular in the movie market, with many classic movies aimed at the teenage demographic, which tackled confronting issues while also adding a dose of light-hearted comedy, making these movies generally crowd-pleasing, where we got hits like The Breakfast Club and Footloose, to name but a few. However, there was one teen movie that stood out to famed filmmaker Steven Spielberg, and that was The Karate Kid, a movie which sees its main character, Daniel LaRusso, a high school student, have to stand up against his school bullies, while also transitioning for a personal journey of growth and development. And this is basically how 3 O'Clock High came to be. Spielberg wanted to make a movie like The Karate Kid, a teen movie that has lots of drama and self-discovery about a teenage boy who has to face his high school bully. And if you put the karate element aside, then you'll see that yes, these films are actually quite similar. They even end with a showdown of our main protagonist facing off against their bully. Number 9. It was the director's first theatrical movie. So Spielberg came on board as 3 O'Clock High's executive producer. 3 O'Clock High came out at a time when Spielberg and his production company were really branching out with successful hits, of which Spielberg himself produced, with classics like Gremlins, The Goonies, Back to the Future, Inner Space, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, to name but a few. Yes indeed, it seemed that the silhouette logo of Elliot and E.T. flying on a BMX bike assured movie box office success. And it would have made sense at that time for Spielberg to try and break into the teenage market, as at that stage he had already conquered the family market. Okay, now you could say that he already tipped his toes in the teenage genre with Back to the Future, but that movie was more of a time travel spectacle. Whereas 3 O'Clock High didn't have flux capacitors or monsters that multiply when they get wet. It was a true teenage drama in every sense of the word. Directing duties were given to Phil Joannou, with 3 O'Clock High being his first theatrical movie. Spielberg chose Joannou as he had previously directed 2 episodes of Spielberg's fantasy anthology series Amazing Stories, those episodes being Santa 85 and The Doll. Joannou was only 23 years old at the time, and the Doll episode won an Emmy for Best Actor to John Lithgow. So Spielberg was no doubt impressed with Joannou, and felt that the time was right for the uprising director to direct his first feature film. Number 8. Scorsese influence. When it came to creating the world of 3 O'Clock High, it seems that director Phil Joannou took less inspiration from Amblin and more from Martin Scorsese movies, particularly Raging Bull and After Hours, of which both were a huge source of inspiration for Joannou for directing 3 O'Clock High. This is probably why the movie feels a little dark and edgy than your usual crowd-pleasing movie that Spielberg was more well known for. You can see slick, stylistic, and sometimes even surreal choices in directing style in 3 O'Clock High, which were clearly inspired by Martin Scorsese movies. So as it stands, the movie kind of feels like what you would get if Martin Scorsese made a high school drama. And I think going for this more darker art house approach enabled more of a psychological exploration of the Buddy Revell character, making him much more interesting and dangerous. Yeah, this character scared the heck out of me when I was a kid. However, this decision to go into a Martin Scorsese approach would cause problems during the movie's post-production, but more on that later. Number 7. Other talents behind the camera. The script for 3 O'Clock High was written by Richard Christian Matheson, who is in fact the son of legendary famed author Richard Matheson. Christian Matheson had previously written for the Incredible Hulk TV series, as well as Knight Rider and The A-Team, and he probably got the job working on 3 O'Clock High because, just like director Phil Joannou, Matheson had also worked on Spielberg's Amazing Stories TV series. After 3 O'Clock High, he would go on to write for the Tales from the Crypt TV series, as well as fellow horror series Nightmares and Dreamscapes from the stories of Stephen King. The cinematography work was done by Barry Sonnenfeld, who several years later would go on to become a big-time director, directing the 2 live-action Addams Family movies from the early 90s, as well as the original Men in Black trilogy. He also did cinematography work on Raising Arizona, Big, and Misery. And to add an extra touch of surreal rock, Tangerine Dream provided the score for the movie. Originally, Tangerine Dream were just an electronic rock band, but at that stage they were providing several scores for movies, including fellow teen drama Risky Business, Firestarter, Legend, and Near Dark. And I always find that they create a unique yet satisfying sound. And the movie was distributed by Universal Pictures, which was the studio that handled most of Spielberg's related movies during the 80s. Number 6. Casting of the 2 main leads. The main character of Jerry Mitchell, the hapless student who is trying his damn hardest to avoid a fight with the school bad boy, was played by Casey Siemaszko, whom had previously starred in Back to the Future. He was one of Biff's gang, namely the one with the 3D glasses. And he also played one of the young thugs in Stand By Me. According to IMDb, Kirk Cameron and Corey Feldman were considered for the part but didn't get it. Spielberg cast Siemaszko in the role as he had previously starred in an episode of Amazing Stories. Yeah, a lot of the talent of 3 O'Clock High seems to be made up of cast and crew members of Amazing Stories, of whom Spielberg had previously worked with. The episode in question was called The Mission and was directed by Spielberg himself. Although director Phil Joannou has a slightly different story with the casting, he said that there was an open call where literally anyone and everyone could come in and audition, with auditions taking place in LA, New York, and Chicago, of which thousands of people, all of whom were unknowns, turned up to audition. And Casey Siemaszko got the part because he was funny and manic, and had the qualities of an everyman, an average everyday kid. As for the fascinating role of Buddy Revell, the dangerous new kid in town, Richard Tyson got the part because he took a more method approach and really became intense as he immersed himself in the part. To me, growing up, I always knew him as the bad guy from Kindergarten Cop. I always thought that he looked like a mishmash of Val Kilmer and John Kreese from The Karate Kid. Tyson totally comes across as unhinged and often terrifying in 3 O'Clock High, and is definitely not a student that I would have wanted to get on the wrong side with when I was in high school. One funny thing about the casting is the age of the 2 main leads during filming, as Casey Siemaszko would have been about 26 to 27 and Tyson would have been about 30 to 31, and yet they were both playing high school students, and both actors would have been older than the movie's director, Phil Joannou, who was reported to be 25 at the time of filming. But you know, it actually really isn't that uncommon for actors in their 20s or even their late 20s and early 30s to play high school students. I mean, just look at Grease. I think some of those kids were like 32 and 34. Number 5. Filming location. 3 O'Clock High was filmed in Ogden, Utah. Although some of the movie was shot on sets, most of the filming was shot in and around Ogden High School, a high school that was founded in 1937 and still going strong to this day. Several other movies would go on to be filmed at the high school, including the teen comedy Drive Me Crazy in 1999 and a Disney movie called Don't Look Under the Bed, also in 1999, as well as a YouTube miniseries called Youth and Consequences in 2018. Well, there you have it. I'm surprised that more movies haven't been filmed at the location, as it has a distinct yet iconic look, and it does look great on film. Who knows, maybe the school is too focused on educating its students and doesn't really have much time to dabble in movie location filming. And if so, well, that's a good thing, I guess. However, the Ogden city itself isn't low on fellow movies that have been filmed there, as other movies have used the state for filming, including Con Air, Dumb and Dumber, the Stand miniseries, and more recently, the series Yellowstone. Number 4. Alternative movie title. The movie poster for 0'ClockHigh is actually pretty clever, as it shows that Jerry is over his head and is facing a threatening impending doom that he is not equipped to deal with, which is symbolized with the giant hand ripping through the clock, grabbing him. But this is purely symbolic. So if you haven't seen the movie, I hate to inform you, but there is no scene of a giant hand coming out of a clock to grab this kid. Although I do feel like that this poster was inspired by the movie poster for After Hours, which, as mentioned, is a Scorsese movie which in general was an influence for 0'ClockHigh. The poster was drawn up by awesome movie poster legend Drew Struzan, who during the 80s drew up many posters for other classic movies, including Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, as well as fellow teen comedy drama Better Off Dead. And as always, his artwork for 0'ClockHigh is spot on. However, in some parts of the world, it seems that there was modifications made to the movie's title. As in Brazil, the Portuguese title translates to "I'll catch you outside," which according to a post on Reddit is a common high school expression in that part of the world for high school bullies to say to other students. It basically means I'm gonna get you after school. It also has other terminologies other than "I'll catch you outside," including "I'll see you outside," "I'll meet you outside," and "outside right now." So what the sentence basically means is a bully threatening their prey with a hostile meet-up after school. Which is basically 0'ClockHigh in a nutshell, really. So using that sentence actually really does make sense. Then we have the German poster, which is a whole different ball game. Firstly, it uses entirely different poster artwork. It actually looks really badass, but also terrifying at the same time. What with Buddy's knuckle dusters smashing its way through that clock, accompanied by nasty looking sharp glass. I mean, look at poor Jerry here. He really is not having a good time. Yeah, I know it's based on a shot from the actual movie, but still, the German poster doesn't waste any time letting you know that Jerry is in for a beating. And the German title of the movie, I believe, roughly translates to Force Rule, Terror in the High School. I actually really like this poster. The only thing is, I just can't figure out why Buddy's hand looks like an 80-year-old's hand, but what can you do? Number 3. Making the movie led to a U2 project. Oddly enough, it was during the post-production phase of 0'ClockHigh that director Phil Joannou met Irish rock group U2, and after meeting up with the band several times and being impressed with the director, they asked him to film their concert movie, Rattle and Hum, which he did the following year in 1988. The movie chronicled the band's Joshua Tree tour all across America, and after filming the tour, Joannou had to shift through 1 million feet of film to edit it into a movie. After 0'ClockHigh, Joannou didn't really direct that many feature films. He would direct the odd movie here and there. However, his collaboration with U2 for the Rattle and Hum tour would lead him to go on to direct several music videos, including a further 9 music videos for U2, as well as music videos for other artists, including Bon Jovi, Tom Petty, Mariah Carey, and Whitney Houston. And I think it's a shame he didn't direct more movies, as going by 0'ClockHigh, he is a perfectly competent director with a great visual eye and style. So, who would have thought that directing 3 High would lead to a long-lasting collaboration with U2? I sure didn't see that one coming. It sure was quite a twist, even if I do say so myself. Number 2. Spielberg disowned the movie. So it was during the movie's post-production that things really went south, as after watching 3 High, Steven Spielberg, the acclaimed filmmaker and director who pretty much got the ball rolling to make 3 High, was not happy with what he saw. He just felt that the movie was not the original vision that he had in his mind. His biggest issue was that director Phil Joannou was heavily influenced by Martin Scorsese, and according to IMDb, after watching the movie, Spielberg said to Joannou, "What happened to Karate Kid? You made a Scorsese film." Spielberg also didn't like the movie's dark tone, so this prompted Spielberg to have his name removed from the movie, where he disowned it completely. And so 3 High didn't have Spielberg's name attached to it, nor did it have his Amblin logo. Something I wonder is if the movie had the attachment of Steven Spielberg's name, if that would have made it perform better upon its release. Often these Spielberg-produced movies would have it declared on the poster, with sentences like Steven Spielberg presents or a Steven Spielberg production, and that usually assures some level of success in the box office. But 3 High didn't get that. Maybe if Spielberg's name was attached to it, then things could have worked out better for the film. Which leads me to my final point. Number 1. Going against the grain. So 3 High was released in October 1987 and was a massive flop, just bringing in $3.6 million on its $5 million budget. Yeah, it couldn't even recoup its budget, with it causing losses rather than bringing in money. It didn't help at the time that the movie got negative reviews by critics. One thing that has been attributed to 3 High's failings and bad reviews is the fact that it did go against the grain of what teen movies were like at that time. A time when the John Hughes teen comedies were all the rage, with movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science, and so on. It was felt that 3 High broke away from that mold, a mold that was more commercially friendly and crowd-pleasing, and that 3 High went into a more edgy direction. Incidentally, 2 years later, Heathers came out, which was also a dark teen comedy, which also took a more edgy direction, stepping out of the John Hughes safe zone into more daring subject matter. And that movie was also a flop when it came out, but like 3 High, it has also become more appreciated in time. So I guess back then we just didn't want our teen comedies to be edgy, but instead to be more whimsical. So as far as 3 High goes, in the long run, this direction has actually benefited 3 High's longevity, as although in 1987 people didn't really understand it or like it, in later years people have gone back to 3 High and have come to the conclusion that it's a good movie, and was unfairly judged upon its theatrical release. And because of this, the movie has now become a popular, well-loved cult classic. Over the years, 3 High has often been compared to the 1952 western High Noon, with 3 High often being labelled as High School High Noon. It seems to be one of those movies that have aged like a fine wine, in that as more time passes, the more popular it becomes. And so that terrible day at school that Jerry Mitchell was having, where he had to gloriously stand up and face his fears, will live on in the hearts of fans forever. I think 3 High resonates with so many people because at some stage in high school, we've all had to face a bully at some stage along the way. It's happened to me and many other people that I know. Heck, I can remember being thrown to the ground and literally kicked in the head. It was pretty messed up. And maybe there's a part in all of us that wants to be like Jerry. Just that one time where we can stand up to our bullies. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I really don't miss the high school days. See ya!